So today we have Ximon with us. And Ximon, if you'd like to tell us about your organization and how you found out about us and the artist that's working with you, how they're going to work with you, and just I'll let you just tell us all about it.
My name is Ximon Kittok, they, them pronouns. I'm one of the co-founders and the executive director of Grand Rapids Trans Foundation. We are a small, sort of grassroots nonprofit based in Grand Rapids, Michigan. Our purpose, our mission is to support and celebrate the local trans community here in Kent County. So we're pretty hyper local. We have a number of different programs that we do to support the local trans community, including an academic scholarship, a name change program, legal document updates, gender affirming items. We have a trans-based social group. We have trans resource guides that we provide and update on an annual basis to the community so trans folks can find affirming providers. A lot of the work we do is really based around creating equitable advancements for the trans community who are statistically underemployed, underhoused, impoverished. So a lot of the work we do is providing direct financial assistance to support people through their name change process, through school, with getting dysphoria reducing gender affirming items. So we're small, but we've had a pretty big impact here in our little corner of Michigan. Yeah, as far as hearing about Causability, really that was our community partner that came to us with this opportunity. They had found about it somehow and wanted to kind of create some new fun collaboration with our organization. So I heard about it through Bailey at Transfigure Print Company. We have partnered with Bailey and the Transfigure Print Company in the past. They are also located here in Grand Rapids, and it's been really fun to collab with them on a number of things. They've been big supporters of us through the years, so they often will have a number of fundraisers through the years where they'll do some sort of short drop that a certain portion will come back to support the work and the programming that we're doing.
So walk me through what it would be like to be a trans person and become aware of that you're trans. Maybe they're always aware they're trans. I'm not sure. I don't know anything about it. If you could just
Yeah.
walk us through a little bit what the process would be like for somebody, so that way if somebody's watching this and they don't know, and maybe
Yeah.
they are, but they want to find out and they don't have any idea, and maybe that'd be a starters for them to get educated.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that there's a wide variety of experiences, lived experiences for folks in the trans community. So I think with better representation now in the media, I do think that there are a lot of really young kids who are coming out as trans, vocalizing that they feel differently in some particular way. And I think we also have a large contingent of folks from older generations who maybe always knew they were trans, but were maybe too afraid of the political climate, or maybe they were sort of pressured into certain life paths that now, in their 40s, 50s, 60s, I think we've even had some people in their 70s that have
Wow.
decided now is the time that I'm finding the bravery to like kind of actually convey who I really am.
I
So
would. It takes a lot of courage to come out.
definitely. I think we're really lucky now in the last decade, I would say decade, 15 years, where the trans community has been um, more supported and more focused on because there's still so many disparities in the community. I think a lot of centers, a lot of LGBTQ centers around the country have historically been like, we're an LGBTQ center, but they don't focus as heavily on trans needs. I think in the last 10 years, it's really shifted in a really positive way because I do think that we're seeing a lot more attacks on the community as a whole, but I think really who's taking the brunt of it is the trans community. I think they've become sort of a flashpoint that yeah, right wingers have sort of like focused on and tried to kind of disparage in particularly vicious ways. So
Mm.
it's good to see that the community as a whole is supporting trans folks in a more substantial ways these days. There's also still rampant discrimination against the community, especially trans people. There are people being thrown out, fired, thrown out of housing because of who they are. Those are protections that we don't have on a national scale. So it really is. I think the fight continues, and I think that there are still a lot of areas where we still really aren't equal. Where we have to basically fight tooth and nail to stay employed, housed, with access to healthcare. And again, the visibility is sort of a double-edged sword where there are it's definitely really great to be able to see something and be able to envision something new for yourself. Maybe you've been in the closet for 3 decades and you see someone who's living their truth and you're like, I feel brave enough to do that. But with visibility, there's also, yeah, some like a level of political rhetoric, scrutiny around your life. And I think that the gay and lesbian community had this too back in the day where when folks started coming out en masse, there was a internal movement in the community to be as presentable to straight people as possible, where you're just like, we are going to wear dresses. We are going to, like, women are going to wear dresses. Men are going to wear suits. We're going to be model citizens, so that straight people will accept us. And I don't know that that's liberty either. I think assimilation doesn't really benefit either our community or the straight community. I think there's something really lovely about the way that we can all come, um, engage with each other and community in really lovely, unique ways.
Authentic. Yeah.
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 So, I do think that, yeah, the level of kind of anti-trans hate, anti-trans legislation, the spike in anti-trans legislation really has been sort of an unfortunate side effect of visibility.
Like these people are just living that like the whole point of being
Absolutely.
American is like living your life and living your truth and like self-actualization and stuff like that. It's like this is like transgender is like the ultimate self-discovery and self-truth and self-actualization that's out there. So it's like it just feels so odd and strange when people are like kind of coming out so hard against something that's like, especially like Gen Z and Gen Alpha. What you hear from those these younger people is that they're around non-binary and trans people and and that's just an aspect of life. It's just like, yeah, that's my friend, like
Yeah.
and so when they see like people my age or older just flipping out, it's like so foreign and alien. It's like, what is happening? Yeah.
Yeah. I do think that, yeah, conversations around bodily autonomy and freedoms as humans, but also as Americans, kind of come into play in a way that's it's hard to kind of think about how this really does come down to personal freedoms, and there's people out there that are trying to strip rights away from people, and it feels un-American. So, and I think we're really lucky here in Michigan, insofar as in the last handful of years, we've been able to pass a number of really important pieces of legislation. Not our organization, but the state has, and we've had a really good we've pushed a lot of these things forward as organizationally, but things around banning conversion therapy, adding gender expression gender identity and sexual orientation to our state's Civil Rights Protections Act. There's been a recent banning of the gay and trans panic defense, panic defense in court cases. So, and we currently do have some legislation that we've been pushing pretty hard for to really modernize and create more safe pathways for folks to update their names. Currently, it's not safe for trans folks to update their names in the state. It's very confusing, very expensive. So this new legislation would take care of a lot of those things, where folks won't necessarily have to out themselves during that process. So it really is, it feels like in Michigan, there's some positive movement, some sane movement towards just like protecting people's rights, allowing them to like not be actively discriminated against. And it feels real baseline to me. It feels like it shouldn't be some sort of political statement. People should have protections so that they're not just like thrown on the street or fired from their jobs for no reason.
All this is going to come onto Michigan, and it just feels like the rhetoric is going to get so much more vitriolic in a lot of ways. And it's just like, so I think that kind of will make your job a little harder, but also maybe, again, that's the whole thing, more visibility, but more negativity, but also more chances of, restitution or help.
I think regardless of what happens in the election, there could be backlash in concerning ways. We have some safety measures that we're kind of figuring out right now. I think a lot of the trans folks in our area are incredibly grateful for the support that we're providing. And some of them are really concerned about the election, regardless of which way it goes. So, and just some of the backlash. Our state does have a large amount of militias kind of out in the rural areas. So it's not like our state is an interesting mix of things. And we have contingency plans. We are helping trans folks get passports in case they feel like they need to safely move at some point in the future. But I think our organization is pretty invested in staying put, continuing to fight for better outcomes, better community here in Kent County and in Michigan. So I think there's a lot of things on people's minds. Obviously, it's a real I don't know, interesting last few months with all the things that have happened. So
how does someone find out who they are, what gender?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'm just trying to figure it out for myself.
Absolutely. And I think there's a lot of people in the queer and trans community who grow up really from a very young age having an understanding of themselves that feels at odds with what the world is telling them. And I think a lot of those people do not have language to figure it out or express. And I think representation and I think the internet have changed so much where people can get information. Oh, this other person is having a very similar like internal experience to me. Like there are other people out there, and maybe that means people are doing a more binary gender. Maybe they're like, oh, this feels very similar to me. Maybe I was assigned male at birth, but I feel like my internal experience is that of a woman. And there's this binary movement that can happen. But there's also a whole community, and I consider myself non-binary and genderqueer, where basically we kind of fall outside of standard gender identities, gender expressions, gender expectations. And so it could be that too, where it's just like, maybe I don't feel like the quote unquote opposite gender as the one I was assigned at birth. Maybe it's more that I feel detached from those genders and don't have any allegiance or alliance to either.
That's interesting. I mean, this is fascinating to me.
Yeah. So basically, genders are, even within men and women, there are gender variations that even all women don't experience womanhood in the same way. All men don't experience manhood in the same way. Um, Gender is a very fluid thing where we like to think there are like these sort of firm boundaries around them, but that's really not the case. Everyone sort of has their own unique experience of whatever gender they do or don't have. So I do think that with visibility, with finding community online and in real life, you can kind of sort of discover who you are and where you fit. And I think the process of discovery is something that uh, is a little bit more fluid. You test it out. Maybe some things work, maybe some things don't. Maybe you feel more comfortable here, so you kind of lean in that direction. But I would say even in the trans community, I think oftentimes you hear about, the narratives about it is social transition and then medical transition that includes hormone replacement therapy. It includes surgical procedures, gender-affirming surgical procedures. It includes name changes. And for the trans community, it's really not that cut and dry. There are people who are like, I got, of this handful of things, maybe I just want to socially transition. The rest of the medical stuff is not important to me. I just want to be acknowledged in public. Maybe hormone replacement therapy, but not surgery. Maybe that's the whole gamut. So I do think that being trans can look a lot of different ways, including none of these things. So,
Well, that's
but I do
where,
think that
sorry.
oftentimes people start in sort of a socially transitioned way, where you start using a different name, different pronouns, maybe you dress differently. And that's like a good, like, easy sort of into sort of like experimenting and exploring. So
Well, I think that kind of falls into your thing about earlier about people who kind of are kind of like recognize themselves as gay, bi, or lesbian, and then falling back in is like there is a, or I don't think that much anymore, but there was a big jump to do that with trans people, with trans medicalism, like essentially like to yes, you have to go down these steps to be trans, so because the last step is for you to fold back into society. Like people will just recognize you as cis at that point, and it's like
right, assimilation.
right,
Yep.
right.
And I think for some trans people and for some queer people, that is absolutely what their aim is.
Yeah, it's more
But
about
I
the
think
social
there's
pressure. Not you don't want the social pressure to force people to take that choice. Yeah.
right, yeah. I think there's a lot of people who yeah, that's not an important aspect. They want to just be who they are, and oftentimes that doesn't look like fully assimilating into cisgender expectations or straight expectations. It's finding the ways that make them most comfortable. I will say that like assimilation doesn't there maybe is a certain comfort in assimilation, but I think to a large extent it's very limiting and kind of stifles a lot of, I don't know, creativity and just the way that people are inside. So not just for the queer and trans community, but for everybody. So um I think we're seeing, yeah, some interesting pushing of boundaries around, uh not wanting to necessarily just fall into um I don't know, yeah, cishet expectations, stereotypes, all that. So
I would think that people would need a lot of therapeutic assistance, not just internet stuff. Do you provide psychological support, or are there people, that are dedicated? I'm sure there are.
Mhm.
What's the situation in your community and in the US, if you know that, with the therapeutic approach to helping people?
Well, I guess to start, our organization is small. We have 2 staff, so we don't personally supply any sort of therapy assistance or that, but there are a number of places, a number of affirming therapists that we do have in our resource guide. There is another organization here in town called the Pride Center, and part of their programming is they do have some funds to help people who can't afford therapy get some free sessions. So that's often a group that we often push people towards if they need some financial assistance. I think therapy is really important, but not necessarily the be all end all. I think for a lot of people there is a certain internal knowledge that is not something that necessarily needs to be psychoanalyzed.
I was thinking about more like a therapeutic approach, like art therapy or music, people expressing themselves. I'm sorry, I didn't really dig that. That's what I like, and that's what I'm hoping this project does for your community.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to lead into that a little bit too.
Okay. Yeah. I would say that we do have one social group that meets on a monthly basis. And basically this is a space for trans people to get together with other trans people. We call it tea time. And basically we kind of do different things every month, but it's a place for folks to find community, find friends. I think the pandemic really isolated a lot of folks. Isolation is not good, not healthy, can actually lead to a lot of these like more negative outcomes that we see. So we're trying to get people connected and in a community. And some of those things definitely have been more kind of in that artistic expression space. We will be having some upcoming crafting nights. We have had a number of things throughout the last year where we have encouraged people to kind of express themselves through through movement, through art. And I do think those are very important. I do think that there is space for self-discovery through writing, through art, that can be really powerful. And I think kind of a natural lead into this partnership that we have with Transfigure and Bailey at Transfigure Print Company. We have started getting all of the pieces together for our second annual Transfuse Art Market, which is going to prioritize trans artists and queer artists. So it's going to be something where trans artists can definitely sell work, like make a living off of their artistic abilities, but also it will be a space where there will be some interactive elements where even attendees who come will be able to kind of like add to the event. I think just highlighting and celebrating trans art, trans excellence is an important part of what we do. I think that we see a lot of like really negative narratives about trans people. And so we're trying to fight back with, trans joy and trans euphoria. We don't have to accept the tragedy narratives that we're given. There's a lot of really like lovely and creative and positive things about being trans, about how powerful and connected the trans community is, how we look out for each other and find power and support in each other.
Yeah, my dream is one day we don't have to use any labels.
Wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah.
When we talked to Bailey, they said that you guys had worked in the past on an event similar to what he was doing this time. Now, could you kind of go into that? Like I know you guys closed down like a little block. It's like a dead end street that you kind of close off and kind of have. Could you kind of go into like what this event is typically, or what has been in the past? Sorry, the ones. I know it's a little different this time based on what he's doing, but yeah, like in the past, like what you guys had done with him.
Yeah, absolutely. So in the past, last year, Bailey had kind of mentioned to me in passing, we've been friends for a while now, that he'd always wanted to have an art market that like highlighted trans artists in the area. And I said, let's do it. So we basically, we working together, we kind of decided that it would be right outside their working space. So they have a little space where they do all of their screen printing. So we shut down that block. I think we had I want to say it was like 22 artists, so it was still pretty small. Um, but essentially the way the partnership worked is that we worked collaboratively on all of the marketing, the reach outs, getting all of the artists together. And again, because of statistically, trans folks are, underemployed, underhoused. There's just like a level of discrimination at play where um, we know that a lot of trans folks don't have a ton of extra money. So basically, it was free for all artists to be there to vend, and that's what we're doing again this year, where there's not some sort of upfront monetary requirement, but that 10% of anything they sell will come back to the Grand Rapids Trans Foundation and support the programming for the trans community that way. But so we really were dedicated to making it sort of low barrier. We had one musician last year, one trans musician that came in and did an hour-long set, which we paid for. And that was great. We were dedicated to having some food options. We prioritized local trans and queer-owned restaurants and food venues for selling food there. And yeah, there were some accessibility things that we wanted to make sure that we were paying attention to. So we had some porta potties, including a wheelchair accessible porta potty. We made the event strongly encouraged folks to mask in outdoor settings, and we did have a little indoor space where masks were required. So we wanted to make sure that we were looking out for folks who were immunocompromised in our community, and made sure they felt safe to come out and experience it as well. So I think that was pretty much it. We did hire a local queer security firm to just like keep an eye on things, make sure that you just never know. And again, in Michigan, it's such a mixed space. It's hard to know if there are people that are going to find it and come and cause some mischief. So we did end up hiring security for that last year. This year's event is going to be very similar, except we're renting out a full city park that has a pavilion. We're doubling. I think we're hoping for 40 or a little over 40 vendors. We're hoping to expand to like maybe at least 3 performers, musicians, drag artists. Basically, we're kind of leaving it a little bit more open and see who applies. It's important. We're making sure that it's important that we pay those people, especially if they're trans performers. We want to make sure that we are prioritizing paying trans people for their labor.
Yeah.
So anyway, so it's going to be very similar. We'll have some security. We'll have some more interactive elements this year, I think. I think we're going to have a whole little like craft area where folks can come and engage in a more hands-on way, not just like a consumerist sort of way. But we're really excited about the show, who we're having as performers, and yeah, it'll be good.
Well, this is exciting. I really applaud your organization and the community for supporting this event and putting it on. I know it's not easy to do these things, especially when you've got, political things that you're dealing with too, but it's so important. It's so critical to go ahead and do these things regardless and step out into the community.
Well, just speaking from myself, I'm sure Bailey has expressed similar things, but from the Grand Rapids Trans Foundation, we're just so grateful for Causability's support of expanding trans creativity, supporting trans artists here in Michigan. It's so vital. The event would not have grown this big this year if we hadn't received these extra funds. So it's really, really exciting that y'all decided to move forward with our application. I think Bailey is such a gem of a human being, and I'm so grateful that your judges kind of saw that spark and wanted to support like his vision. So
yeah, and it was all done on an application on the internet. We didn't
I know.
interview him in person. They never, never saw him in real life. So whatever he conveyed through the application came through.
Yeah.
And so we're really happy too. Well, is there anything else you want to share before we wrap it up?
I'm an open book. Obviously, we're a really small staff, but I'm always open for
We're a small staff too.
questions.
You're looking
Yeah.
at it. We've got
Oh,
two
yeah.
too. Yeah.
Okay. Very similar. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. Well, I don't have anything else I want to say, but I'm just want to like put it out there that if either of you ever have any other questions or want some more follow-up, I'm happy to connect again.
Well, thank you
Yeah.
so much for your time. And we hope that your event, we know it's going to be very successful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Liz.
Have a great
Ian.
day.
Love it to meet you both.
All right. Bye bye.